Alright, reach for the sky. At long last, your number's up. Professor Coldheart? You seem different. Leonard Snart, also known as Captain Cold, Flash Foe and Scourge of Central City. Today I'm defrosting this DC Multiverse Collector Edition to see if it's worth your ice. A bit later in the video, I'll also be doing a speed run of the McFarlane Digital Speed Force Flash. Starting with the packaging, and Leonard comes in an extra wide, extra shiny window box. He's number 30 in the Collector Edition series, and comes from The Rogues. For those searching for their Snart in-store, here's the UPC, and then on the back we get some pretty cool comic art of Captain Cold. This particular piece comes from Final Crisis Rogue's Revenge. Nope. Not that rogue. For packaging, Captain Cold gets 4 points. Before I continue, just wanted to take a moment to point out that they actually have a band around his face to keep it from falling off. And given all the faceless figures I've seen on shelves, that's probably for the best. Moving on to presentation, and Captain Cold stands at 7¼ inches, or 18 centimeters, and is mostly reuse of the original Page Puncher's version. Specifically the arms, torsos, and lower extremities. At first blush, you might not realize that the chest is the same because of the shawl, but peeking underneath you can see the original tooling. Traditionally, Captain Cold is depicted as being in just a basic blue jumpsuit, so this is obviously a lot more detailed than normal, but I do still think it looks really good. I'm actually impressed by just how well that original sculpting works here, and this time it's been elevated with some dry brushing to bring the texture out. That's always a win in my book. The belt is new and nicely done. I like that they made it gold and not just plain yellow, but then they made the holster for his freeze ray a bright canary yellow, so it does stand out a bit. Looking at the shawl, and as usual, McFarlane's texture game is on point and helps it to blend better with the reuse. Even more texturing in the hood. Texturing in the hood being my favorite gritty urban thriller, as well as a bit of extra paint for the fur trim. For me though, the highlight are the faces. We'll be looking at the other ones in Playability, but for now, this demented grin is great. Lots of personality in the sculpt, and it's been painted very well. I particularly want to highlight the teeth, which often don't come across well in action figure form. I also like that his iconic glasses are a separate sculpted piece, so it does actually look like you could take them on and off. Normally I'm not a fan of figures being given extra details than what they have in the source material, but when it looks this good, I can't help but thaw. For presentation, I'm giving Captain Cold a frosty 5 points. If you're enjoying this video so far, or at least think that my ice puns are cool, go ahead and give it a like. Moving on to Poseability, and right from the top, McFarlane made a choice here that I am very happy about. Mainly that the whole head, hood and all, is on a ball joint, meaning that the whole thing can move instead of just the face. Despite the hood, you do get a bit of up. Here's straight for comparison, and then here's looking down. There's even a bit of tilt. This overlay does hinder him a little bit. As such, you don't get complete rotation, but he can raise his arms about 90 degrees. There are rotator cuffs, but not a whole lot of forward and back this time. No trouble though with bicep swivel. He's also got double jointed elbows with a great bend, and wrist balls that can swivel and hinge in any direction. Move into the middle, and Leonard has a diaphragm joint and a dumbbell waist. He can arch back this far. Here's standing straight, but alas, he can't really hunch forward. He does, however, get side-to-side tilt, and of course twist. Below the bright yellow holster, and Leonard has the standard McFarlane hips. He can kick about 90 degrees, and do a perfect split. There's also a pretty nice amount of twist in the hip. Moving on down, we've got double jointed knee with a nice deep bend, along with toe articulation, and ankle balls that can swivel, hinge, and like Captain Cold, becoming the number 2 ice-based villain after Mr. Freeze, despite having come out first. Pivot. Held back only by the hunch forward and shoulders. For Poseability, Captain Cold gets 4 points. Moving on to Playability, and this frozen meal includes a trading card and a figure stand. And since it's a collector edition, that stand has a nice silver logo. Flipping that card around, and here's a short bio for those who want it. Throughout the video, and we've seen Snart comes with a pair of fists. He's also got a pair of I'm coming to get ya hands, and a pair of accessory holding hands. That accessory being this fancy hairdryer. figure. No, it's actually his freeze ray. It looks straight out of a 50s sci-fi movie, and the metallic fuchsia makes it really pop. The best part is that since McFarlane included two accessory holding hands, he can hold it in either his right or his left. Given how easy it would have been just to preload him with an accessory holding hand and a fist and call it a day, I really appreciate the options. And speaking of options, let's talk about the swappable faces. In addition to the grinning face we've been looking at, there's also a simple smirk. Note that the lenses for the eyes are narrower on that one. And lastly, there's this frowny face. Any one of these faces would have been great as a standalone release, but having the options is awesome. Hey Leonard, didn't your mama ever tell you if you held your face like that long enough it would freeze that way? Thank you, I'll be here all week. But playability is more than just swappable faces, it's also about how well your figure plays with others, bringing us to a quick look at the McFarlane Digital Speed Force Flash. This figure is mostly a reissue of the Target exclusive Flashpoint Build-A-Wave series version, which itself uses the Blue Beetle body, the legs being what separates this version from the original release. Specifically that they were cast in a translucent plastic. Not only that, but there's even flecks of glitter in there too. Beyond that, the paint apps are nice and crisp, and I do really like the unmasked Barry Allen head, and this extra piece simulating his mask pulled down. Not to worry though, because just like the original release, he comes with an alternate masked head. This Barry Allen also comes complete with some wraparound lightning effects, which go a long way to add a sense of motion. If all that wasn't enough, Flash has a figure stand. He's also got a trading card, complete with bio, but the main feature is the McFarlane Digital Code. This gives you a 3D digital token of the figure that you can display in an online showroom. Speed Force Flash is a Platinum Edition, which means you are going to have to search in stores. If you can catch him, he's only $24.99. On the aftermarket, he averages between $30 and $35. Huge thanks to McFarlane Toys for making this portion of the video possible by sending me this sample to review. To see how he scales, and here he is with Captain Cold. That said, and here's Snart with the original recipe Flashpoint version of Barry, as well as the DC Rebirth version. Though for the curious, and here he is with DC Essentials. Back to McFarlane though, and for some TV and movie versions, here's a couple of Ezra Millers, as well as Grant Gustin. Come on, DC Multiverse John Wesley ship. For some other members of the Flash family though, and here's Impulse and Kid Flash, and of course Jay Garrick. But for some other Flash foes, and here's fellow Captain Boomerang, the single-carded Reverse Flash. That said, I do have the 2-pack, and we'll get around to it. And then here's Dark Flash, Godspeed, and the Injustice 2 Gorilla Grodd. Grodd is a great segue to the Legion of Doom, led by Lex Luthor, along with Brainiac, a BOGO of Bizarros, Black Manta, I went with the movie version because of how comics accurate it is, as well as Sinestro, the DC Classic version of Riddler, and the Arkham City Solomon Grundy Build-A-Figure. For a couple of DC Directs though, and here's the Hush Scarecrow and the DC Essentials Cheetah, and I really hope we get DC Multiverse versions of these guys while there's still time, along with these versions of these guys. For a relative scale comparison, here's Captain Cold with Pizza Spidey and the Spectacular Spider-Man, and as always, here he is with Stealth Iron Man. So tell me, with all your fancy gadgets, do you have a cold-busting armor? Yeah, it's called a sweater. The scaling, accessories, and swappable faces all snowball together so that for playability, this Captain Cold gets 5 points. This leaves us with nothing left to discuss but the price. I'm not trying to snow you when I say that I really feel like I got my money's worth. Between the hands and swappable faces, there's a lot of value in the box, and at $30, this is one cold you'll want to catch. For price, I'm giving Captain Cold 5 points, skating into a grand total of 4.6 out of 5. Once again, huge thanks to McFarlane Toys for sponsoring a portion of this video. For more Flash reviews, including my full breakdown of the Flashpoint version, check out one of these. And until next time, play nice and have fun.